I've made a terrible mistake, and something awful is going to happen. I sneaked into the only place I'm not allowed to go. My parents' room. I couldn't stop myself. I was too curious to know what they were hiding. But I got caught. Now I have to fight for my life, running with tears on my face and nowhere to call home. I'm alone in this world. I'm an orphan who lost her real parents at age 5 and ended up with 2 complete strangers. I took a pause and sat on the curb. I needed to calm down. I tried hard to recall what had happened exactly, but I couldn't. All I knew was that one moment I was hiding, and the next, everything was in complete chaos. I saw everything around me shattered into pieces. I was standing in front of Clara, and she was going ballistic. Then she grabbed me by the hand and screamed words I couldn't remember. The room looked like it was hit by a tornado. What have they done? I jerked my arm away and started running in fear. Jacob was after me, trying to catch me. Luckily, I managed to get out of the door and escape before he could harm me. While I sat on the curb, a car seemed to be heading my way. I started shaking as it came closer. It was 2 a.m. and I was alone on the streets. I was so exhausted that I couldn't run anymore, so I just sat still and hoped it wouldn't stop. But it did. As the window rolled down slowly, I started to relax. It was a woman, and I knew who she was. "What are you doing here in the middle of the night, young lady?" It was Mrs. Jessel. She was new to the neighborhood. "Mrs. Jessel?" I started crying again. "Please take me to the police station, fast!" Without hesitation, Mrs. Jessel told me to get in the car. On the way, she kept asking questions, but I couldn't let her in on my secrets. I didn't know her that well. "You shouldn't be so trusting, Allegra, even with your own mother," she said as I was leaving the car. How did you know?" I asked in confusion. "I've heard things about your family, and I understand. You know where I live if you need anything. Now go, dear," she said as she squeezed my hand. When the policeman interviewed me, I exposed everything my parents did, but he didn't seem to care. "Allegra, I need you to focus and tell me exactly what happened tonight," he said. "I already told you. I can't remember everything. They hurt me, and that should be enough for you to arrest them," I said, frustrated. When I arrived home with the policeman, I saw Clara and Jacob outside. They looked like 2 lunatics searching for something they'd lost. When they saw me, they pretended to be relieved that I came back. Someone give them an Oscar. The officer questioned my parents while I was asked to go to my room and let the adults speak. I hoped that the officer would ask me to leave with him eventually, but after 2 hours of waiting, all he could tell me was, "Your parents explained everything. I hope you understand that things did not exactly happen the way you told me. You're tired and need rest. Call me if you need anything." I looked at the officer in disbelief. My parents had managed to deceive him. "Thank you, officer. Have a good night," I said as I held back my tears. The officer left and I got in bed. There wasn't much time left to sleep anyway. Shortly afterward, Clara knocked at my door and whispered, "Sweetie, are you awake?" She came in to check on me, but I pretended to be asleep. When Clara left the room, I struggled to fall asleep. Suddenly, I heard a voice. I snapped alert and turned to see who was there. It was not Clara. It was a female stranger. I couldn't see her face in the dark, but something about her felt comforting. "Can I help you?" I asked calmly. But she stood there for a while before she said, "I know you're alone. That's why I'm here for you." "Who are you?" I asked. "It doesn't matter. You must run away," she said. "Run for your life, Allegra." "Why? What do you know?" I started panicking. Before I could continue, the woman disappeared into thin air. I called out for her, but the room was completely empty. I placed my foot on the floor and was about to search the room, but I fell down and woke up from the dream. That dream was the strangest I'd ever had. I went downstairs while my parents were in the kitchen making breakfast. "Good morning, sweetheart. I made you pancakes," Clara said with a cheerful tone. No thanks," I said. "Oh, that's okay. I can make you some bacon and eggs. I know it's your favorite," she said, cheerily smiling. Jacob was smiling too. I stared at them totally confused. They were acting as if yesterday never even happened. "I don't want food," I said stiffly, but they ignored me. It was as if they didn't even hear me. "What is wrong with you two?" I screamed in anger. They stared at each other in silence. "Can you please tell me what is going on? I feel like I'm going crazy. You've been hiding stuff from me since the day of my car accident. You think I can't see it?" I looked at them, waiting for a response, but there was only silence. "Answer me!" I shouted again. "We can't answer your questions, Allegra," Jacob said in a cold tone. Clara looked at him as if she hoped he wouldn't utter another word. "There's something very wrong happening here, and I know it." I ran up to my room before they could respond. I decided that I wasn't going to wait any longer. I needed to sneak into my parents' room one more time. I waited until midnight, and I was very careful not to wake them up as I searched for their phones. When I found Jacob's phone, I quickly took it outside and unlocked it. His password was very easy to guess. As I was scrolling through it, I noticed that he'd been receiving lots of email regarding my adoption. According to these emails, my biological mother's real name was Lilith. I didn't understand why they'd kept her name a secret. There was some serious stuff here, and as I read it, I started shaking. There were police reports about my car accident. There was too much to read, but the phone started ringing. As I was panicking and trying to silence it, my parents came in. I put the phone under the blanket and acted like I'd done nothing wrong. To my surprise, they took the phone and went to their room like everything was normal. As they were leaving, I shouted at them and told them I was going to find out the truth. But they didn't respond. The whole thing was just very weird. I was dying to know what the documents said about the car accident. I had so many unanswered questions. Since the day of my car accident, I've been struggling to remember many things. It happened on a Tuesday. I was driving home when the brakes stopped working. I pushed on them, but the car never stopped. I thought it would be my last day on Earth, but luckily, I survived. It was a miracle, but I was in a coma for a month. No one expected that I'd wake up. When I did, I was shocked to hear that a whole month had gone by while I was unconscious. The recovery was tough. I was in pain, but soon enough I was able to go back to my normal life. However, I felt anything but normal. I couldn't concentrate anymore, and I couldn't remember many things. No one took me seriously when I explained it. Your MRI scans look perfect. You don't need to worry, the doctor kept repeating. Even though I couldn't think as clearly as I used to, I wasn't stupid. I was sure that my accident had been planned by someone. My parents, however, rejected this idea completely and told me that I was imagining things. Ever since then, I'd been suspicious of them. I stopped asking them for the truth and started sneaking around instead. I only needed some proof, something to show that they'd intended for me to be killed. But who would help me? I had no one. I thought about turning to Mrs. Jessel, but something about her felt weird too. I decided to avoid everyone until I found a solution. Some time passed and things kept getting weirder and weirder. I struggled to remember each encounter I had with my parents, but my blackouts kept recurring. When I snapped back to reality, I found myself surrounded by complete chaos every single time. I found myself crying every night. I was lost, confused, and lonely. The only thing that gave me comfort was the woman in my dreams. She had no face or name, but she kept reappearing. She was my only friend, and that scared me a bit. After all, she was not real, but she was what I needed. Whatever she was helping me stay strong. And without her, I couldn't have planned my escape. Every morning I grabbed a sheet of paper and started writing the things she talked to me about. I kept the paper under my pillow. It was the only thing that made me feel close to her when I wasn't dreaming. Something in this woman drew me to her like a magnet. I wished she really existed. Then one day, my secret dreams were not so secret anymore. I had gotten back from school when I noticed that my paper was not where I'd left it. I was nervous, but I knew exactly who took it. I ran downstairs calling out for Clara. My parents were sitting at the kitchen table. Clara held the paper in her hand and she motioned for me to sit with them. I came closer, shaking. What was going to happen now? Allegra, honey, we need to talk to you about this, she said as she showed me that piece of paper. Are you planning to run away? Jacob asked, looking worried. It's my private business, I said firmly. Allegra, we are extremely worried. We've been trying to get you the help you need. Please let us help you. I said, this is mine, I screamed as I snatched the paper from Clara's hands. But that's when it tore in half. I hate you both. Just leave me alone, I screamed and headed to my room. Allegra, stop. We have to tell you something. I paused. What? It's about your mother. Clara came closer and held my hand. Your biological mom has reappeared. We've been seeing her in the area. She came to us a while ago, demanding that we return you to her. I felt like the world had paused for a moment. My mother is here? Why didn't you let me meet her? I couldn't breathe. It's not that simple, honey. Your biological mother is dangerous. Jacob handed me some papers. This is the police report about the accident. You were right. It was actually planned, but we didn't want to stress you out while you were recovering, so we hid this from you. As I read the report, I was shocked to see her name as the first suspect. According to the police, they reported that Lilith had assumed that the car was my parents and she was trying to get rid of them. But you always said that my parents were good people. I could hardly speak. We didn't want you to know who they really were because we were afraid that would affect who you would grow up to be. We were just trying to protect you, Jacob said. But the report didn't end there. Apparently, while I was in a coma, my biological mother had been visiting me every day in secret. Another patient told the police that they heard her talking to me every day about her plans of how to reunite us. Suddenly, I started to connect the dots. The car accident, why I was having blackouts, why I couldn't remember stuff, and the mysterious woman who kept appearing in my dreams. Oh my God, this was even scarier than I thought. What happened the night you caught me in the closet? I pleaded to know. My parents looked at each other for a while, and then my mom spoke carefully. It was a blackout. You've been having them for a while now, and we don't really understand it. When you get upset, you get very angry and you start throwing things. When you snap out of it, you can't remember what happened. We tried to tell you and offered therapy to help, but the last time we did, you almost sent us to jail. I was the one creating all this chaos? It felt like the world had stopped. Why is this happening to me? I asked, trying not to cry. We're not sure, but we believe that the day of the accident was the day your childhood trauma started affecting you, especially with your mother's reappearance, Clara said in a gentle voice. I was overwhelmed. This was all very confusing. I started to feel like I was about to black out again, but that's when I felt my mother's arms around me. She hugged me and said, "Stay with me, Allegra. You can do it." I hugged her back and I slowly felt like I was coming back to reality. 3 months later, my blackout started to disappear. I was aware of everything that was happening in the daytime, but the woman in my dreams kept reappearing and she wasn't hidden in the dark anymore. Slowly, I started to see more glimpses of her face, and I knew who she was. It was Lilith, my biological mother. These dreams were happening because of the many talks she had with me while I was in a coma. When I asked my parents about her, they had claimed that she was in jail and that I shouldn't worry about it. Even though I knew they were lying, I was okay with it. I had given them a hard time already, when all they had wanted to do was protect me. I must admit, however, that my biological mother had a lot of guts to drive me to the police station in the middle of the night. Later on, I asked about her, but everyone said that Mrs. Jessel had moved out all of a sudden, and no one knew where she'd gone. If anything, I've learned that no matter how bad my past was, it is now behind me. Sometimes it's better not to look back and try to move forward instead. Even though I had the urge to confront her, I decided that I wasn't going to look for her anymore. I would focus on the two most important people in my life, my real parents, Clara and Jacob.